I'm John McQuay with 8541 Tactical, and this is Mail Call Mondays, the show that answers your questions about precision rifles, optics, and equipment. Welcome to another Mail Call Mondays. I apologize for not getting a video up for such a long amount of time. We generally like to get videos up at least every week, if not every other week. But we really had a whole lot of stuff going on for the last couple of months. It started off when Sarah and I went down to the Guardian Long Range match at Frontline Defense in North Carolina, and we had another absolutely excellent time shooting that match. Now, unfortunately, the after-action report from the match did not come out really the way we intended it. We had a whole lot of stuff going on in a very compact time, so I got the bright idea that I was going to slap the GoPro camera on the windshield and that we were going to do the after-action report on the way back. Well, unfortunately, I wasn't running the correct case for the GoPro that allows me to jack mics into the side of it, so I tried to just go with the onboard mic, and the audio is really garbage. What they are is they're an organization that helps foster children find their forever homes. I may go ahead and upload it anyway because you can still hear what we're saying. It's just not an enjoyable video to watch. Some of you guys may still want to tough it out and get something out of it, but it's really it's an embarrassing example of what not to do with audio on video, and I'm almost too embarrassed to even put it up because it really is just garbage as far as the level of quality that I like to put out in our videos. If you guys really want to see it, go ahead and put it in the comments below, and I'll put a rough cut up and then throw it up. Again, I apologize for not getting a really good after-action report for the Guardian matches. They are absolutely great matches. We had a blast with the people that are in our squad. And again, Guardian long range matches are a little bit different than a PRS match. PRS matches, really, there's a lot of heated competition. It's really all about the points. It's about where you finish at. It's really about testing yourself. And there are generally a lot of prizes, a lot of high dollar prizes on the table that guys are competing for. The Guardian matches are the polar opposite of that. Great courses of fire that do test your skill level, but in a very, very low stress environment. So you have the ability to converse with other shooters. It's a great environment for new shooters to get into match formats because you have very experienced shooters there as well that are more than happy to share the tips and tricks with you because there is not that level of competition. We're not competing for high dollar prizes. If you are a new shooter and not sure if you are ready for a national level match, then please go to a Guardian long range match, and it's for a great cause. It supports Bethany Christian Services, which helps orphans find their forever home. But in addition to that, you get to practice the match format in a really low-key environment with lots of people that really just want to help you out. So it's a great time overall. We love shooting the matches. Gary Larson puts on a really, really great show. So I highly encourage you to get out and check that out. I will have the write-up soon on our website of it. So if you don't actually want to listen to the absolute crap audio on the video, then you can go to the website and you can check out the actual after-action report written up in web format with some great photos. So that was it for the Guardian long range match. Then we came back. I dropped Sarah off. I got one night's sleep, washed my gear, threw it back in the car, and I headed down to Clearwater, Florida for Sniperweek. Sniperweek is a conference and a challenge, a two-day conference, two-day challenge, and it's specifically designed for military and law enforcement snipers with a focus on law enforcement snipers. The conference covers current case law, current case studies, some training issues. So it is really what you would expect from a professional conference. We go over standards in the industry, best practices, all that fun stuff that we need as police snipers to be able to keep ourselves in accordance with court decisions and to keep ourselves out of hot water as far as legal practices. So it is really focused mainly towards law enforcement snipers, but there is stuff in the training aspect that military snipers can get out of it as well. Then you move on to the challenge, and the challenge is a 2-day team event. And what the purpose of the challenge is to be police sniper training. It's not really intended to be a traditional competition. It's not intended to be a traditional rifle match. You're supposed to approach the challenge the same way you would approach a police call-out, where you may have to take a live shot. And that's stressed throughout it. If you try to game it, you're probably going to have some problems. If you try to push the outer edges, you may be DQ'd. So really you have to approach it as, would I do this if I was taking a live shot on a call-out? And that puts kind of a different feel into it than you see from a match. And again, it is limited to active duty law enforcement or military snipers. The specific reason behind that is because it is training. There's nothing super secret about it. There's nothing discussed at the conference or at the challenge that you couldn't get by a detailed web search. But in order to keep it focused on the mission at hand, which is training police snipers. That was the Sniper Week challenge. We shot a lot of video. I did not actually compete in it. I went there mainly as media coverage, and we are working on putting out a really good video. So those of you guys that are not either able to attend the Sniper Week challenge, or those of you that do qualify to attend the challenge but you haven't been able to convince your administration to send you to it, hopefully we'll be able to come out with a video product that you guys will be able to show your brass and say, this is why we need to go to Sniper Week. I highly encourage you, if you are an active law enforcement sniper, you need to get to either the Sniper Week East or the Sniper Week West conference and actually see if your training is following those best practices, those recommendations from the ASA and the NTOA, and to make sure that you're doing what you need to do to be prepared to take that shot. So after we finished up with Sniper Week, I went down and crashed for a night with my parents, met up with some fans down there in Clearwater and in that general area, and then jumped in the car and ran over to C&H Precision Weapons and met with Buck Holly over there and dropped off the parts that C&H is going to use to build up our M40A1 sniper rifle. The M40A1 was the current issue when I was a Marine Corps Scout sniper, and I have had a box of parts sitting here for a very long time. Macmillan return stock, 6-digit Remington receiver, bottom metal, a couple other pieces, in addition to a US Optics MST-100 sitting in the safe. And I've been staring at this box of parts for a very long time. The lead time to build M40A1s from some of the top level shops in the country has been really, really long. You could wait up to a year once you actually get them your parts in to get this thing built up. Well, C&H Precision Weapons has a much shorter turnaround time, and they apparently turn out a really good product from everything I have been able to gather. So we contacted them. They said they would be happy to build up the rifle for us, and I ran down there and hand delivered the parts to Buck, and we should in the next month or two have a rifle ready to go. The thing with C&H Precision Weapons is they actually employ a Marine Corps 2112 who actually builds the rifles the way the Precision Weapons section in Quantico would build the rifles for Marine Corps Scout snipers. This was what I wanted. I don't really want to take it to a shop that can build me up a match rifle. I want the M40A1 built exactly the way the one that I carried was built, so that it's an exact clone of the rifle that I carried. There are some drawbacks to that. An M40A1 is a top loader with regular drop bottom metal, so there's no magazine feed. It's limited to 5 rounds. And the MST-100 is the US Optics clone of the Unertl 10X. US Optics at some point in the M40 timeline received the contract to rebuild the Unertl 10Xs and to build replacements for scopes that were unserviceable. So it is possible out in the fleet that there are MST-100s running around. Not any longer, because all those were brought in and stripped off, and all those rifles were unfortunately destroyed some time back. But the rifle that I will have once this is complete is as close as I could get to one that I would check out of the armory in Lejeune before we went out to the range. So excited to get that back, and once we get that rifle in, we will do a full review for you guys. Unfortunately, because of the distance and because of the way these rifles are built, it's not possible for me to actually cover every step of the build process. I would have loved to have been able to do that, but hopefully when we go to pick up the rifle, we'll be able to get down there and get you some pictures inside the shop and show you some of the processes that are used to build those rifles. So once we came back from that, I had a little bit of family stuff to do, because once you're gone from your family for almost 2 weeks, it's probably a good idea to get reacquainted with them so they remember who you are. And then we got back into working with some products. And sitting here in front of me is one that you guys have been requesting for quite some time. This is the Magpul Hunter 700 chassis for the Remington 700 rifle. We went ahead and dropped our Southern Indiana Precision Built Action into this guy, and it went in perfectly, bolted in just fine. And we found out some really interesting things along the way. Now, the Magpul Hunter 700 chassis, I'm just going to give you a really quick initial impressions. We've got probably about 100 rounds through it so far, and I really like this guy as far as the price point that we're looking at. You really don't have a ton of options in this price point, and the Magpul 700 the Hunter 700 gives you a great deal of options. The first thing you'll notice is that the buttstock section here looks a lot like the Magpul 870 shotgun stock, and it feels very much like that stock. Utilizes the same cheek risers, same butt pad components, and so you have a lot of options to switch things around here. The way it comes out of the box is the way you see it right here. We haven't added any additional components, and the comb was just the right height for us for the US Optics SN3 mounted as close as you see it here. So you're going to be good to go with most scopes if you're running a setup similar to this with low or medium rings. If you need to go a little bit higher, I believe Magpul does have higher shotgun spacers, but we'll have to double check on that to make sure it doesn't actually come with the highest already. The length of pull is adjustable, and it comes with quite a few spacers in the box. Unless you are a really long-armed guy, you're going to be able to get enough spacers in here to be able to fix this stock to where you need it. It was comfortable to shoot. The pistol grip angle is pretty good. I really prefer a more vertical pistol grip angle on precision rifles, but this is fully workable. One thing that I noticed that I really did like is they have these little indents here at the wrist of the stock. And what this is for is if you decide to float your thumb same side, you've got a little notch to drop your thumb into right there, so you can really get a good grip. The angle, you've got this little hook down here at the bottom, so you can really run your hand low on this grip and get a good angle for your trigger finger onto the trigger. We are running a Timney Calvin Elite trigger in this system, and it dropped in with no problems at all, no interference. I don't foresee any interference with most of the triggers on the market. Now, we haven't put our Extreme Mod 22 trigger in here yet. When we drop that in, that's actually the largest Remington 700 trigger I have worked with. As long as that thing will fit in here, I think you'll be good with just about every other trigger that is on the market. Now, the big deal with the Magpul Hunter 700 stock is when it comes out of the box, it's got this little kind of adapter piece already in the bottom of the stock, and that allows you to use your standard Remington 700 hinged floor plate on the bottom of the Hunter 700 and run an internal box magazine. So if you are really pinching pennies and you have bought something like Remington 700 SPS Varmint rifle, which is a great starting point. It comes with regular hinged bottom metal. You can go ahead and use that internal magazine and that hinged bottom metal to get you out to the range and get you shooting. Everybody eventually wants to upgrade to a magazine system. Really doesn't matter if it's a hunting rifle or a varmint rifle or whatever. The ability just to pop the magazine release and drop your magazine out is really great versus having to drop that floor plate and have your rounds come shooting out the bottom and then have to mess with the spring and get it closed back up. Well, right now the Magpul Remington 700 trigger guard and bottom metal is probably about the best deal out there on an AICS compatible magazine system. And so if you decide that later on, okay, I've saved up a couple extra pennies, I want to go ahead and install this magazine system, you just pop this guy out and it comes out just working it out with your fingers, and then the Magpul Remington 700 magazine system will bolt right in here with your factory action screws. That was something that I found really interesting as well, is that it still reuses the factory action screws. It doesn't come with its own special action screws. So that bolted right in with no problem at all. And when you purchase the magazine system, it comes with a 5-round magazine. And these magazines are AICS compatible magazines. So they will work in a lot of AICS systems out there. I can't say they will work in all systems because we found some that they're a little sticky in. They will not work in Accuracy International AE rifles, but they work very well in this one. Now, one thing that you do notice is they are not drop free. They do have quite a bit of friction in there, and even when I hit the release, it will drop a little bit, but it won't actually drop free, even if I hold the magazine release totally forward. So you do have to grab it and pull it out. Since it's polymer on polymer, we'll see over time if that loosens up any. But the 5-round magazines work just great in it. They give you a nice low profile. Now the 10-round AICS magazines are out. These are the Magpul PMag 10 762 AC. Kind of a long name, but that's how you figure out which PMag you need, since we have PMags for pistols now, PMags for gas guns, PMags for bolt guns. It's the PMag 762 AC is what you want for this system. Now the 10-round mag fits in really nice and really doesn't protrude much below the bottom of the system. So if you're running really low profile, you got to get under a barricade, you're in a really cramped up situation, they work great. Now, we haven't had any problems with these with SAMI spec ammunition. So if you're running any factory 308 ammunition, you shouldn't have any problems feeding at all. We have not gotten into trying to see how long a cartridge we can feed in this system yet. We'll do that first with 308 cartridges, and then we're going to do it with 6.5 Creedmoor, and we're going to see how long we can get on the cartridge overall length and still feed into the action without hooking. Because when we insert the magazines, you can actually look down through the action and you can see that we've got just a little bit of overlap from the action and the magazine. With this bottom metal, it should position the magazine so we don't really have any problems. Again, didn't have any problems at all with SAMI spec ammo, but you can get a little bit longer in these magazines without catching on the lip of the magazine. And we'll see if we can get as long a cartridge as we can fit in the magazine to actually feed in the rifle. That will be the key thing for those of you guys that are running factory Remingtons with that super long throat on them. Now, I will say this, if you're running a factory SPS or any of the other factory Remington 700 308s, you are not going to be able to load your bullets long enough to be just off the lands or to jam the lands and still feed in a magazine. That just isn't going to work. That throat is so long on their 308 chambers that you have to single feed if you want to either jam the lands or if you want to run right off the lands. So for you hand loaders, magazine length is where it's at if you're running a factory 700. So that's it on the magazines. when we do the full review, we'll talk a little bit more about the magazine system there. Coming forward, talk about the recoil lug really quick. This chassis system, or the stock, has a really open recoil lug area. So even the big Mongo PTG lug fit in there just fine. This is wider than a 0.3 inch lug, so it is really a really wide recoil lug. Dropped in there, didn't bottom out at all, torqued in just fine. So we're good to go on there. This is a full-length aluminum bedding block. You don't need to do anything. Don't do like the guy that's famous on the internet now and went in and ground out his bedding block in order to try to make it fit better. It fits great right off the bat. The action torqued right down in there. That bedding block is going to do a really good job of supporting the action. Coming forward to the forend has a really nice wide contour to it. It's kind of flat on the bottom, which helps it ride the barricades really well, but it has this lip up here which gives you a lot to grip onto. The Magpul polymer can be a little bit slippery, so that contour just gives you a little bit more to latch onto. And I like the fact that they put this little lip back here. It just gives you a little bit something extra to run up against the barricade if you're shooting off any kind of hard-edged barricade. I thought that was really nice. And what that prevents is it prevents you from getting back here and tilting the magazine. One thing that we did find with this chassis system is running it against a barricade. If you push that magazine, you can see I'm getting some tilt here. Well, if you push the magazine back and get that tilt, it will occasionally lock up the bolt. You can actually feel the bolt running over those ears. So if you really put a lot of weight into it, you can have the bolt catch on the back of the magazine. So you don't want to load the magazine, especially the 10-round magazine, too much. You want to try to go off that lip up here on the barricade. The Hunter 700 does have these M-LOK compatible slots, 3 on either side and then 2 on the bottom here, so that you actually can add whatever rails you want. Currently we have one of the Magpul polymer rails on the bottom, one of their M-LOK polymer rails, and I've got a Strike Industries rail on the side, the SI Link rail, which is supposed to be key mod and M-LOK compatible, and it locked in there just fine. And it's got a flush cup for me, so it allows me to mount my sling up front with no problems. There is no sling mounting option on the Hunter 700 as it comes out of the box, so if you want to mount a sling, you're either going to have to use a standard sling swivel stud. A regular wood sling swivel stud will screw in here once you drill a pilot hole in it, or you can go with something like an M-LOK rail or an M-LOK flush cup adapter, and that will go right in there. For your rear sling mounting points, you have the footman's loops here on the side, but you can also put in the Magpul QD cups, as I have on either side here, and they work great. We just threw our D-Lock equipped Harris bipod on the front here, and that's worked great. Obviously, since you have the M-LOK system here, then whatever M-LOK attachment point you want to put on there for whatever bipod you want to put on will work great. Overall, I've just been really happy with the Hunter 700. Now you have to be careful when we compare this to other chassis systems out there. Remember what you're getting here. You are getting a very, very usable system at an absolutely excellent price point. You could take this guy, drop your action into it, and the stock is not going to limit you if you go decide to shoot PRS competition with it. You pretty much have everything that you need. You have the ability to run barricades, you have your magazine system, 10-round magazine, you have less expensive magazines with the PMags than you do running a regular AICS magazine. And if you already have AICS magazines, they will work in the Hunter 700. So overall, really, really great option. We will get some more trigger time with it. We're going to get some footage of us shooting it off the different barricades and in different PRS type situations and let you know how it does in detail. But right off the bat, I'm really happy with the Hunter 700, and I think it's a really good option for those guys on the budget, or those guys that are maybe looking for a little bit lighter setup and don't want to go with a really heavy fiberglass stock or a really heavy chassis system. So that's about it on the Hunter 700 until we do the full review. Last thing I want to talk about is handguns here. We've been working with the Sig Tacops, and again, like everything here, this is unloaded and clear, no magazine. So right now we have about 1,600 rounds through the Tacops, and I'm ready to give my full review on it. But I can tell you I've been really impressed with this pistol. For $1,000, and you can get them a little bit cheaper in some places, a little bit more expensive in others, but for $1,000 you get a ton of pistol here. We've only run into a couple of little situations with it. The rear sight kept shooting loose on us, and I ended up having to use some green Loctite and Loctite that in. I've since learned that was a known issue with a run of the Sig Tacops, and if you have one, obviously, because Sig does have a very good warranty, you can send it back, and Sig will take care of that for you. The only other options that we ran into is we were ready to switch the grips over to a set of Magpul Mo grips. I just wanted to check out their 1911 grips, and when we tried to remove the screws, the grip screw bushings backed right out with them because they apparently used a lot of Loctite on those grip screws. So be careful if you decide to swap the grips out. Maybe put a little heat on those screws first before you try to back those out. The finish, it looks a little ugly right now because it is covered in carbon and it's covered in a little bit of Kydex residue from multiple times being holstered. But once we run over this thing with some CLP, it will clean up and look almost new. The nitron finish on these things holds up great. I've been highly, highly impressed with it. The rail, it fits some Picatinny lights just fine. You'll have to mess with Surefire lights just a little bit to get them to fit on here. We ended up having to take the spacer out of the back of our X300, and we had to loosen the rails up a little bit and fit it on, and then tighten the rails back down in order to get it to fit on the Sig rail. Malfunctions, once we got through a couple hundred rounds of break-in, we really didn't have many malfunctions at all. When we switched over to Chip McCormick 10-round mags, we did get a little bit of hesitancy for the slide to go into battery from slide release on the first round. That has smoothed out a little bit since we've replaced the recoil spring with a 17-pound recoil spring from Wilson Combat. With the original factory recoil spring, which is supposed to be a 16-pound spring, I believe, we didn't have issues with any high-quality magazine. We did have issues with the McCormick 10-round magazines, which obviously are known to have some issues because of the heavier spring in those magazines. The gun comes with totally usable ergo grips. They provide a really good grip surface, and we've got some really aggressive checkering on the front and on the mainspring housing that just overall gives you a really solid grip on the gun. It's absolutely filthy because I shot Steel Challenge with it this weekend and haven't had a chance to clean it yet. I ran the entire Steel Challenge match with not a single malfunction at all since we've gone in and replaced that recoil spring, which at more than 1,000 rounds, and some of that being plus P ammo, I don't know how much stress we put on that flat wire recoil spring, but it's a really cheap fix to go to a slightly heavier recoil spring for the kind of shooting that we do with it. I went through a pistol class with me. I took a hard target firearms defensive pistol class just to get back into the practice of taking classes. You never ever get to a point in your life where you know enough you don't have to go seek instruction from others anymore. It's always fun to go to a class and see if you're doing things well, seeing how other people do things, and seeing how other students set up their gear and how other students shoot. You can learn a ton. So that class was a blast. We'll also have a full after-action report on that class coming up. But mainly I ran this gun just because I wanted to see how well a single stack 1911 held up in a class that was predominated by plastic guns and double stack and high capacity and all this stuff, and really didn't have a problem with it at all. I rolled into that class with 13 magazines loaded and ready to go, and a dump pouch on my belt with a handful of ammo left in it. And just a little bit of a strategy: if you ever decide to do a single stack gun like that, make sure you have a dump pouch where you can load magazines while they're discussing something or while they're going over things. And as long as you can do so while you're actually paying attention to what's being taught, it will keep you up on it, and it will keep you going throughout the day. So just a little tip there. But I didn't have any problems keeping up with the Tacops. Most of the drills were neutral enough that I could either reload during the drill and not be at a deficit, or I could strategically reload before a string of fire and be good to go. So overall, really impressed with the Sig Tacops at the price point that it comes in at, and it's really become one of my favorite guns to take out to the range and shoot. But again, we'll have a detailed review specifically on the Tacops coming soon. So that's about it. We're trying to get back into the swing of things. As always, thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions that you'd like to see covered on the next Mail Call Mondays, please leave them in the comments section below. We will select comments for Mail Call Mondays from the comment section from the previous video. So make sure you leave them here on YouTube under the video. If you have any questions or comments about anything, you can leave them in the comments section below or send them to us on Facebook or Twitter. We are a little bit behind on answering Facebook messages. We get a ton of them, so it takes me a little while to catch up, especially when I've been gone for an extended amount of time. Thank you for all you guys that bought patches. We are totally out of patches at this point. We may be ordering some more here in the future, and I know you guys have really requested hats. We're going to look at reordering hats. T-shirts, we're still trying to figure out exactly how we're going to get that lined out because we have the size thing to deal with, and I don't want to make you guys wait on a pre-order type deal, and I really don't want to be stuck with 6 million small T-shirts that I can't sell. So we'll figure out how we can line that out. I know you guys really want T-shirts, and we really want to get them out to you. But we can't afford to have a ton of stock here at the shop, so we'll check into how we can get that taken care of in the best manner. So that's all for this Mail Call Mondays. We'll try to get you some more videos out a little bit sooner than in the past. And until next time, get out and shoot!